everybody. Hopefully, everybody has had a great weekend so far. It has been a weekend, to say the least. Yesterday was really, really hot and humid. It was the hottest day of the year so far. We had a high temperature of 97, and of course, on top of that, the feels like temperature of 105. So today, let's talk. Probably the last day for a while that we're going to see feels like temperatures in the triple digits. And then let's talk the tropics. Good morning, Victoria. Good morning, Daniel. Hopefully, you guys are having a great day so far. So, lots of sunshine to kick off the morning. If you do have plans to be outside earlier in the day, it will be hot and humid, but I don't think you're going to deal with any rainfall. So, you can see the Memphis Knights or the Memphis Redbirds, that is, at the Charlotte Knights. Things should look pretty good. Maybe we'll see a few isolated storms by the second half, but first pitch is at 12:05. Haven't had any rain and storm activity so far this morning, but we really did see that really big, large cluster last night. Now we have a cold front that's situated just to our south. So anytime you see a stalled front, oftentimes that means multiple days in the row with potential for showers and storms. So we certainly are going to have that. Tom, have fun at the lake. Invite me next time. Just kidding. But of course, just make sure you're keeping an eye out for storms later. Now, because we saw rain Thursday, we saw rain Friday, we saw rain yesterday. Not everybody saw it, but there is going to be a low end risk for localized flooding today and tomorrow, and even into Tuesday across the Carolinas. So I just want folks to be prepared for that. We will see a lot of pockets of heavy rain, and that risk is going to increase potentially even more so as we enter the second half of the upcoming work week. So please just prepare for localized flooding. If you live in an elevated, higher elevation area, you know your home is prone to flooding. I don't know, maybe you have a pool. Go ahead and kind of take those precautions that you normally would, drain it, things like that before you do so. And then kind of all eyes are shifting to the west coast of Florida and especially the Big Bend region as we enter the upcoming week. I do want to preface the fact that I will be talking about a tropical system that will likely impact us here in the Carolinas. This is not a direct landfall by any stretch, but there is a lot of uncertainty. So I'll just go ahead and say that. So, kind of a rinse repeat forecast today and tomorrow. We're talking sunshine, but a mix of clouds and heavy rain, especially in the afternoon and evening time frame. I do expect today us to be, again, largely dry before about 3, 4 p.m., but really heavy rain, frequent lightning, and a better chance for strong to severe storms will actually be in the evening, just kind of like they were yesterday. And we know 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. We talk about them a lot during the summertime, just based on the fact that we do see that risk a lot, but that can certainly do some damage. So please keep this in mind if you have, a new roof that you need to put on, things like that. If you have any issues, with, softening there and there's hail, all of those things, of course, can impact your home and impact your outdoor plans. So thankfully, Sunday night isn't as maybe an active day to get out and about as Saturday night. And even though we are going to see a lot of rain and cloud cover the next few days, and you've probably seen on the 7-day forecast that is going to lower our air temperature during the day, it's not going to lower the dew point. So the humidity is still going to be plenty elevated, plenty high. So it still will be very sticky until we get closer to the upcoming weekend. So I don't want you to see the 83-degree forecast tomorrow and think, man, it's going to be great. It's still going to feel really humid outside. So the reason why we eventually are shifting our eyes to the, away from the frontal boundary and more so to the Gulf of Mexico is because of this. A potential landfalling hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, likely right now, it looks like near the Big Bend region of Florida by midweek. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about impacts there, but I want to just give you a quick summary. We'll likely see rainfall and additional tropical moisture from this system. The question mark still is exactly where it goes will depend on how much rain, whether or not we see a severe weather risk, whether or not there's a significant risk of storm surge near the coast. So all those things kind of still need to be worked out. But long range models do show that afterward, we do see some drier air. You can kind of see this on our map and long range futurecast, kind of getting wrapped in around it. And so this actually might result in a better weather forecast for us locally in the Carolinas as we enter Labor Day weekend. So I would never say that it's a good thing, but from a weather standpoint, we might see some benefits by next weekend. Now, I think the biggest risk here is going to remain rain leading to localized flooding. Not only because we've seen rain the past few days and we have a flood risk today and tomorrow, but notice this, 3 to 5 inches possibly locally with isolated higher totals, 4 to 7 if not higher near the coast. And that's again on the current trajectory of this additional tropical moisture that we're going to see. So just kind of keep this in mind. We essentially have rain chances in the forecast every single day this week, really with the exception of Friday. And while that is subject to change, as we still have a lot of time to watch it, I just want to point that out. So let's kind of shift gears here. I gave you a quick, overall update. So let's talk about Tropical Depression 10. So as of 10:52 on Sunday morning, Tropical depression 10 is still a tropical depression. It is struggling a little bit to get that close center of circulation. Hurricane hunters are prepared to go in and out of that storm probably all day to kind of see what's going on. Now, something you might notice, and I wish I had the little ability to kind of draw on here, but the center of circulation looks to be shifting a little bit further to the south and a little bit further to the west. That may have implications on the eventual forecast track. So when you hear us on television, oftentimes, and sometimes, when Brad does like the long range vlogs, we talk about how the low pressure center, kind of the center of circulation, has to form in order for us to get accurate model data. That's absolutely true. Think about it like this. If I was forecasting a high temperature and my forecast was 85 yesterday, but I expected a low of 75, right? So I'm expecting during the day for us to only go up by 10 degrees. If the actual low is 70 or if the actual low is 80, if my range was 10 degrees, I'm probably now going to have to adjust my high temperature. Is that right? Because if I'm expecting it to go up 10 degrees. So similar situation with forecast models, if the low is supposed to be here, but it eventually forms here, that's going to shift all the adjustments that we have to see. So that's why it's so important for the low to have already developed in order for us to get more accurate data. Now, the National Hurricane Center has sent out, of course, a forecast track as they often do, and it is in pretty good agreement with a lot of the forecast models at a center of circulation, likely nearing the Big Bend of Florida by Wednesday. Now, the forecast track is great for a lot of reasons. We talk about this a lot, though. It's only circling in red the potential center location. So, of course, the actual impacts are much further than that from the center. So, as we get closer to the actual event, I'm probably not even going to show this forecast track. The reason why I am right now is just to kind of show you that there is pretty good model agreement so far. It's kind of, will this continue once the center remains? In fact, the European and the American were in much better agreement today, even compared to where they were 24 hours ago. In fact, it's almost kind of interesting how much they're in agreement, as they oftentimes have a pretty substantial, difference. But one thing that I will say is positive is as we look long range, especially at the European, it is still showing that blue, that's the color, kind of getting pushed offshore. And again, that's what would wrap that drier air in around for the Carolinas. So I'm going to show you, of course, that was forecast models. Sorry, our graphics are being a little funky, but let's see. Okay, I want to show you something else. So we talked a little bit about where it could go and how there is some uncertainty. Another addition, I guess, to that uncertainty is wind shear and warm ocean water temperatures. So as we look over the next few days, there is going to be moderate wind shear in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's not really high enough to really rip the storm apart completely, but it's not low enough to give it a full range, right, to develop. So we'll have to kind of see where this wind shear has an impact. Again, you can see the cluster of spaghetti models, most of those heading still toward the Big Bend. And then long range after that, the storm will definitely get ripped apart by early next week if there's even a low pressure center that remains once it moves offshore, because there's really high wind shear in the Atlantic basin. So that part, I would say, is certainly good news. But the moderate wind shear is going to be battling really warm ocean water temperatures that we know fuels tropical systems. So upper 80s, lower 90s, those are at least 5 or so degrees higher than even we typically see this time of year. And a lot of the reasons why they're so warm is we haven't had any other tropical activity in the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of times when we have a storm that follows a storm that's already developed, what's called upwelling, where the cooler water comes in underneath the surface, will have happened, and that can cool off the ocean water temps. We've had no activity in the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, it has been very, very clear. And so there will be a lot of warm ocean water temps to work with. And that's why the risk of what's called rapid intensification, which is when the wind speed increases 35 miles per hour or more within 24 hours, is possible. The reason why this is important is because when a storm strengthens so much quicker, it's less time for people to prepare. And a good example of rapid intensification was Hurricane Michael, if you remember back in 2018, which devastated portions of the Panhandle near Mexico Beach. And I actually have my parents have a friend who has a home there, and I mean they had to completely rebuild. So it was a big, big, big issue, especially for a small area like a small little town city like that oftentimes gets their money from tourism. If the homes are ruined, people don't want to go to the beach, well, that impacts their local economy. So hurricanes and other natural disasters can have significant differences and impacts than just the fact that a landfalling hurricane happened. And we'll likely see that, honestly, over the next few years in Southwest Florida, where Ian made landfall last year. Intensity models, we still have most of them showing a higher end tropical storm, low in category 1. There were some earlier in some of our earlier model data that was signaling a potential category 3. I think it's important to watch these trends. At the end of the day, the storm is going to rapidly intensify if it has the opportunity to do so. But it's something that I do kind of look at to see if the models are going back and forth on intensity, or if they're staying consistent. Idalia, that is the next name on the list, the pronunciation Idalia. So Eedalya. Those can also be found if you're interested in any of these pronunciations over on the National Hurricane Center website. And I names are actually the historic ones that get retired the most. So there's been the most I name storms ever retired based on, death, destruction, things like that. Elsewhere in the tropics, there actually is an active hurricane, Hurricane Franklin, right now a category 1, but could become our first major hurricane of the season. It's having no direct impact to us here in the Carolinas, but the swells from Franklin have kept a moderate risk of rip currents near the immediate coast for the Carolinas this weekend, and likely will have that impact probably through at least tomorrow and Tuesday. And then as we watch the progression of what happens with 10, we eventually will likely see an increase in rip currents too, just because of that close proximity of the low pressure system. So I would say that if you have plans to head to the beach this week, other than the fact that it'll probably be a little bit wet, especially Wednesday, Thursday, we'll see those elevated rip currents. But you can kind of see that drier air I was talking about a second ago on our 7-day forecast. As we enter Labor Day weekend, we'll see some of that slightly drier air mixing in, lots of sunshine, temps in the mid 80s. So again, with a landfalling hurricane, I would never say it's a good thing, but it might have positive impacts to our weather as we enter next weekend, especially as of now. But in the near term, prepare for scattered showers and storms this evening, lots of heavy, widespread rain at times. CMS first day of school tomorrow. Make sure the kids have an umbrella, have a rain jacket because it is going to be off and on rainy. And again, that's going to continue Monday, Tuesday, likely from that stalled front. And then again, we shift to a more tropical weather pattern with highs potentially only in the 70s by Wednesday, Thursday. There is going to be a lot of changes to the forecast. Again, it is low confidence and right now with the track and intensity because of all the uncertainty. So please keep it here to WCNC Charlotte. We will continue to update you. Myself, KJ, Chris, Larry, and of course, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich will be here every single day, kind of keeping you guys in the loop and letting you know about any significant changes. But for now, prepare for the chance that we could see a lot of localized flooding over the next few days here in the Carolinas, especially inland. And again, if you have property, family members along the coast, make sure they're keeping a close eye on their local forecasts as well. Hope everybody has a happy, safe, and healthy Sunday. Last day in the triple digits for a while for the feels like temperature. So that's one good thing that I'm going to be positive about today. Have a great day, everybody.